Hello everybody, it's Grandmama. Time for another story from a hometown scrapbook by Ben Weatherwax. The Stolen Pie. Hello there. Been to the motion pictures lately? They've come a long way since the days of the old flickers. Talking, music, sound, effects all dubbed right into them. But there was something about those old flickers that was fascinating, especially the heroic drama entitled The Stolen Pie. For The Stolen Pie was probably the only motion picture ever made on Grays Harbor, with a cast of local stars, then shown to the same people who played in it, and thousands of others, as a crowd-packing feature. You probably remember that drama. It was before America got into the First World War. Charlie Chaplin was the clown of America's screen, and the flickers were competing with the legitimate theater. Ed Ben was threatening to close the Grand Theater and convert it to other uses, maybe a hotel or a warehouse, because people were going to see those full motion pictures instead of Pavlova, who had just played to a half-empty house. Yes, that was the day of The Stolen Pie. The story is one that may provide a chuckle for those old-timers who recall it, and provide a little background on the old-timers for those who hear it for the first time. So when Dick Crombie has said a few words from our sponsor, we'll tell you the story of Grays Harbor's first motion picture, The Stolen Pie, and its radiant star who sparkled brightly, though temporarily, in the lights of the flickering screen. Now Dick, a word from our sponsor. It was early in June 1915 that Daniel L. Sherritts arrived in Aberdeen and registered at the Fairmont Hotel. He made himself at home, and at noon of the first day in town, he had lunch with two of the town's best theater men. They were Billy Ripley and Harry Chandler of the Western Amusement Operation, owners of the Bijou Theater. They lingered long over their second cups of coffee at the back table in the Acme restaurant on H Street, and finally walked out together after shaking hands all around. Late that afternoon, a newspaper reporter from the World was called to the Bijou. He was told that he would be given an exclusive of a red-hot story. And it was. He was told that the first motion picture ever made in Aberdeen was about to start filming. Now, Dan L. Sherritts was a versatile man. He had been a cameraman in the studios in California. He had written scenarios. He had directed. And now it was announced he represented Keystone Comics and would produce in Aberdeen a genuine Keystone comedy, and would be made up of local cast members. He would stage every scene of the laugh riot in and out of Aberdeen, and every member of the cast and every person on screen would be a local resident. It was Aberdeen's first chance to get into pictures. Now, don't be alarmed at anything that you see or hear, he told residents of the city. If you see a man running down Heron Street with a stick of dynamite under his arm and the police in hot pursuit shooting at him, it's just part of the picture. And with that warning, he set about selecting the cast. The plot of the picture was simple. A tramp arrived in town, felt hungry, wandered up the street, and spied a picnic. He approached the picnic, saw the cook lay a pie on the table, stole the pie, and was pursued by the cook. A policeman was called. He shot at the thief, and the thief reacted properly with pain and mortification in true comedy style, and finally taken into custody. The key men for the stupendous production was to be the tramp, and the Bijou was bombarded with hopefuls who wanted their chance to be in motion pictures, and just knew that it was their big chance. Mothers tried to get their sons into the cast, and Ripley and Chandler had more friends than they had ever known in town before. But Sherritts knew what he was looking for. After many tries, he selected Goodbar Jones, a young Aberdeen real estate man who had offices with his family's firm, known as Jones & Jones, over in the Lafayette Hotel building. Goldbar was known as an actor of considerable ability, and everyone was sure that he would be a hit. For the Irish cook, Schwartz wanted a man, a fat man with a sense of humor and an Irish face. He didn't look far. There was such a man in town, and well known to everyone. He was Jim Bowes. Jim was drafted as cook. The picnic site selected was at John Lewis's house, still standing on the corner of Broadway and 2nd Street, and a lawn party was planned with about 20 of the town's best-known matrons to be present for the event and to act as character actors in the drama about to be filmed. And on the 24th of June, 1915, all was ready. Some of the women thought they should have elaborate rehearsals, but Sherritt said no, just leave everything to him and it would all go well. So on the morning of June 25th, they were ready for the lights and the cameras and the action, except there were no lights, and the camera was an old-fashioned hand-crank device on top of a tripod, turned out America's first and most historic films. Goodbar Jones arrived at the Bijou to begin filming, made up as a down-and-out tramp. The Aberdeen man had spent most of the night trying new twists on his old clown outfit, and Jim Bowes made good Irish cook. He was acquainted with the Irish, as Blarney Stones are, and he made people laugh just to look at him. Everything was ready to begin filming. The cameraman and his 2 characters went down to the railroad yard. There were no formalities, no crowd of extras, no makeup artists, no sound trucks, just Goodbar Jones in his makeup as a tramp, feeling very self-conscious, and Jim in his cook's outfit, joking all the way, and 50 or 60 young lads about town bent on seeing a real live movie put together. They found a boxcar, and there the shooting began. It was parked on the side, and the door was open in the sun, so Sherritt would have good light for his scene. Young Goodbar sat in the doorway, looked glum and hungry as the camera rolled for the first film. From there, the camera followed the tramp uptown. He wandered the streets. He poked along the alley behind Sam Kircher's restaurant and the Phipps Brothers Chop House and looked through the garbage can at Dan Taylor's back door. Then he went out onto Heron Street proper, the camera catching him in the front of Waugh's drugstore. He wandered up Broadway, and there on the corner of 2nd and Broadway, the camera caught a glimpse of his emotion when he spotted a picnic table across the street spread with the essentials of the tramp's idea of heaven. Goodbar, in his patches and makeup, hurried across the street and approached the tables, which was surrounded by coveys of Grays Harbor matrons about to sit down to their sumptuous repast. And as the tramp worked his way close to the groaning board, the Irish cook, played by Jim Bowes, came out of the house carrying 2 large Keystone comedy pies in the best tradition of an old silent film. He set them down on the edge of the loaded table as the tramp Goodbar edged his way towards the bait. And then, as he saw his chance, Goodbar grabbed the pie and raced for safety. And of course, the cook saw him and gave chase. The camera, meanwhile, was grinding faithfully and recording the gay atmosphere of the picnic, the treachery of the stealthy tramp, and the alarm of the frustrated cook. And now the cameras recorded the chase. Down Broadway went the pair, Goodbar running in the approved Keystone comedy method of the day, and the Irish cook in hot pursuit. At the corner of Broadway and First, Officer K.Y. Church of the Aberdeen Police Department and the cook ran into each other in high comedy style, and when he had picked themselves up, the pie thief was a block down the street, but together they gave chase. They were joined by Police Officer Nat Hart and V.H. Street, and 4 raced after the tramp. By this time, a crowd of several hundred was in the van behind the cameraman, who stopped the action periodically to relocate his camera in an advantageous position. and by the time the pursuit had reached Heron Street, he was ready to shoot the gunplay, in which Officer Church emptied his revolver down the street at the pie-lugging fugitive. Tramp Goodbar registered anguish with kangaroo jumps from grabbing of his posterior, dropped the pie and did a fade-out for the camera, and he dashed off for the railroad yards, and the great film epic was complete. Half of Aberdeen was at hand for the final scenes of the drama, to watch the development of the picture and hoping to get somewhere in the line with the camera lens and so be photographed. And the cameraman did his best to oblige. Conscious of the value of getting the whole town into the picture, Schwartz panned the film exposure over the crowd in a scene that hardly fit the story, but it did manage to take in a big percentage of the city's population in one shot. As the cameraman walked away from the mob with his tripod-mounted camera, he answered the same question 100 times. Yes, the picture will be shown at the Bijou very soon. And the town waited. It was shortly after the 4th of July that the management of the theater announced it was ready to display the first Grays Harbor screen epic, a dramatic 10-minute Keystone comedy feature entitled The Stolen Pie, featuring an all Grays Harbor cast with such historic heroes as Goodbar Jones, Jim Bowes, Nat Hart, and Vic Street. It was billed with 2 other films as one of the biggest productions to be shown at the local picture house since the coming of flickers, and the town flocked to see it. As a candidate for the Picture of the Year, it would hardly have rated, even in those early years of motion picture art, and its cast could not have been said to pose a candidate for an early Oscar. But the audience thought it was terrific, and Goodbar Jones rode the crest of the wave of popular approval for almost convinced him to abandon real estate business and go south to Hollywood. And Grays Harbor talked more about the motion picture than anything since the great train robbery, and would continue to marvel at the genius of the celluloid drama that autumn as the screen brought forth the birth of a nation. And now, Dick Crombie, a few words from our sponsor. Yes, the harbor flocked to see itself in its first motion picture ever filmed here, The Stolen Pie, and a half a dozen residents of Aberdeen soared to minor fame on celluloid wings. And while the picture won no platitudes for a theater world, it did give the harbor its first look at itself, and many old-timers recall the Keystone Epics as a milestone in the harbor's story, and its cast of principals as amongst the most colorful of the citizens that kept their wheels turning in Aberdeen for 35 years or more, and such as we find tonight in our hometown scrapbook. Thank you for listening.